Hi friend, if you're here, I assume it's because you want to knit together. And so today we're going to have a cozy, productive knitting session. Typically this is called body doubling, where you and I work on a task together with the goal of feeling more accomplished with our projects. I'm going to be knitting this very beginner-friendly sweater that I started a few months ago and it's been taking me a long time to finish. If you want to follow along and do something similar, it's a free pattern by Florence on YouTube. You can find her step-by-step video guide as well as a written guide. I'll leave them both in the description just because I didn't make the pattern and this is not a tutorial. I'm just working on the same one. So if you want to join with me and do your own version of it, feel free to follow her pattern. And I'll just be sitting here yapping a little bit so you feel like you have some company. So with that said, when you're ready, gather your materials together and I am going to set an alarm for 20 minutes and we will get started now. Alright, so the timer is set and you can start working on your projects. So it's funny because I started this a few months ago and it was something that if I show you the original version, let me find it. It had a longer collar and then I decided I actually didn't want that and I made so many mistakes on my first one and it took me so long to even get to this point that I just threw it all away and restarted, and I figured I wanted a smaller neckline. So doing this the second time was actually so much faster than the first time, and then I got kind of stumped when I got to the yoke part because I think I just decided it was taking me too long and I got discouraged. So it's been now 2 months since I last picked up this project, and yesterday I met with this group of young knitters who, one girl made a call out on Facebook looking for people to join who wanted to knit with her, and so I had responded and quite a few people did as well. So she made this group and we ended up meeting at a local cafe, which was really, 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 really nice. I didn't expect it to be so much fun. I met so many new people, so many friends that I wouldn't have made just given I don't know, a lot of people that hand knit. I went to school for textile design, but a lot of people at in my program more so do weaving or sewing or dyeing fabric. I know a few people who do knitwear, but then I wasn't really close with them. So this was nice to meet new people in my city as well. That was another thing. A lot of people commuted in for school. So we were all gathered together with the goal of working on our projects, and so that was when I finally completed the yoke. I was so impressed. I said I only had to do 2 more rows and then I was done, but for some reason I was taking 2 months to get that done. It was just I couldn't bring myself to work on the project. So anyways, that was really, really nice. And then I went home and I was feeling so inspired and I ended up just working. I kept knitting while watching TV. I don't know if anyone's watching Bridgerton right now, but that was what I had on in the background, and I stayed up until 3 a.m. just knitting the rest of this, and I got to the point where I could work on the body. So that's what I'm trying to complete right now, and I think this part might be a bit laborious as well, just given it's the same thing all the way down. But maybe that also means it will go faster because I'm not doing increases, I'm not doing fancy techniques, it's just straight knitting, knit stitch. But I'm so excited to kind of see this come together. This is one of my first projects. The first project I've ever made or I ever knit was, I believe, a hat. And I made it for my mom because she asked for one. At first I was trying to knit a scarf and then I realized I was getting bored with just that, so then I figured a hat was challenging enough but still fun and easy for a beginner to do, and I found this cool chunky knit pattern on YouTube. Once again, I find so many fun patterns on YouTube, and as a beginner I feel you don't need to spend so much money on patterns that you're not sure if you'll actually be able to complete them, just given you're learning a lot of new skills and things you wouldn't have known how to do otherwise. And I find finding YouTubers who have videos but also have the written pattern is good to follow along with. So I found this chunky knit hat pattern on YouTube and I just followed along her pattern, and within a few days I had a hat. So that was my very first one. And then after that, I know most people do socks or gloves or mittens. but I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to make something that could be wearable, like a sweater. So that was why I chose this pattern, because I found it. And then, funny enough, at the meetup that I went to with the knitting group last night, everybody was doing the same exact pattern. So I think it's just like a very popular pattern. Shout out to Florence, because it's very easy to follow. It makes you feel confident in learning the skills that you need for future projects. And so everybody else was working on it. Everyone was at different stages, of course, but it's certainly a fun project to work on. After this, I think I might want to do another sweater using the same pattern, just in a different color, since I can already point out some of the flaws I made with this one. And then there's also things that I might want to do, like a tank top or a long sleeve shirt, but I haven't decided yet. I have so much yarn I've been gifted. Also, at the meetup too, one of the girls was so nice to give everyone like yarn that she wasn't using anymore. So I took some skeins of cotton, and they're so lightweight that I'm really thinking it would be nice to make like maybe a refined top or a refined turtleneck, something that's like lightweight and looks sophisticated. I don't know about you guys, but I also have a knitting machine, which is really random, but a few years ago someone on Facebook Marketplace was selling their grandparents' knitting machine, and they were only selling it for $50. If anyone knows how much these Singer knitting machines go for, it was valued a lot higher than $50. This machine in particular was missing quite a few parts, but there's a local store that I was able to get those parts from, and I refurbished it because, so like I mentioned, I went to school for textiles design, and my program, the technician, she was nice enough over the summer break to show my friend and I how to clean our knitting machines, and we used mine as a sample. So we were able to restore it back to working condition, and we replaced like the sponge bar, if you know what that is. It's the piece that goes underneath the needles to like slide it back and forth. It was such a great experience getting to learn how to clean it and refurbish it, and I only paid $50 for this machine, plus of course investing in the time to revitalize it and the new parts. But after that, now I have this machine that I've just been like making samples on, but I'd love to actually make clothing on it, and I just need to find an instructor who can teach me what I need to know and pretty much take these techniques that we're doing with hand knitting and apply it to a knitting machine. I feel like if you have the chance to ever try using a knitting machine, it's so much fun. They're much faster than hand knitting, obviously, but compared to the circular knitting machines, I should have specified this before. I'm referring to a flatbed knitting machine, not the circular ones that have become really popular in the last couple of years. The flatbed knitting machines are good if you want to make fabric that you can then cut and sew into different garments, or you can buy a ribbon attachment. Unfortunately, mine didn't come with that, but that's how you get like nice hems, and you can make skirts and dresses, and I've seen some really great applications with it. I just feel like it's so daunting when you're learning like how to actually use one beyond just like samples. And also, when I was in school, we had access to standard machines, which are like finer needles, chunky machines, which are thicker needles, so you could do like chunky sweaters like similar to what I'm wearing. And then we also had standard gauge, which is what I currently have, and that one's just more like for your more common sweaters, or like if you're using DK weight yarn. And I remember once with my friend, she was using, I believe it was a standard machine, and her hand got caught in the needles. And you have to be so careful because she was just knitting, and all of a sudden she's like, Hallie, help. And I look over at her, and her hand is like caught onto the needles. I had to help her take her hand out of it. She was fine. Sorry, I should have prefaced with that. She was okay. It was just a bit of a scare. So you also have to be careful when you're using any machinery, and know what you're wearing as well, because sometimes like your sleeve will get caught in the machines. But typically, like if you have the chance to use one, they are just like, you get a professional quality garment out of it. So hopefully one day that is something we will all get to experience, because I think we all deserve quality knits. And if you're a beginner like me, I feel like we are so used to like experimenting with cheaper yarns and whatever we can find, just because we don't want to make mistakes on higher quality with higher quality materials, just if it's not going to look great in the end, which I know is a whole other conversation in and of itself. Like, obviously we know like wools and like merino wool, for example, or alpaca, like those fibers are typically better quality, that's why they're more expensive, and we should be considering those ones. But yeah, I think like when you're newer, it's okay to just experiment with whatever you can find, just so you get a feel for the materials, and you get a feel for the techniques, and you'll feel more confident than going into using the finer materials. But I'd love to know how long everyone has been knitting for. As I mentioned, am a new beginner knitter. I started in my classes with machine knitting first, actually, before I picked up hand knitting. And then I started hand knitting maybe 2 years ago, but on and off, not consistent. I've done crochet once, but again, like I never made a project. It was just for like school to make a sample. So I am new in both of those arenas. Typically, I work as a fiber, or no, sorry, I haven't worked as a fiber artist in a while, but I started off with sewing, so my background was more so in fashion design rather than textile design, even though I went to school for textile design, but my passion was in fashion. And I used to sew bags and make like leather goods and things like that, or actually I was learning how to make leather goods, so that was more or less like my focus. But I also find a love for like these slower hobbies, these more craft based techniques like weaving or knitting. So yeah, like I'd love to know how long you've been knitting for, because I'm sure there's a lot of resources out there that I probably don't know of. I'm probably even doing techniques wrong. I don't know about anybody else, but I think I'm holding this wrong. But you know, it works. It's still fast enough for me, but I still think I'm holding like the extra yarn wrong. So, and tell me, like, what got you into knitting? Like, are you interested in making garments? Are you interested in working on, like, blankets or home decor things? Like, what's your favorite thing to make, and what pattern do you love? I find for myself, I really enjoy creating clothing, because that was again my first passion, or my first like the first thing I wanted to make. And so sweaters, tops, that's what I want to continue making. I'd like to make more hats. I don't think I'll see myself making a blanket unless I do it on my knitting machine. I feel like blankets are so not boring, but like it's something I wouldn't want to sit here and knit. It would be something I would want to just make quickly and use a knitting machine to just get it done. Socks I've also been curious to make as well, although I feel like every time I look at a pattern for socks, I get turned away from the idea of actually continuing. I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't think I actually want to make socks. It just seems too daunting, especially when you look at the heel or making the rib for the top. But I know some people love making socks, so curious to know what you enjoy. What do you like making? Also, are there a lot of craft groups? Like, I know there's quite a bit that share techniques online, but in your area, like, do you find that there's a lot of places you can go where you can learn, or are you more like self-taught? Are you learning online? I would say for myself, I've learned so much from YouTube videos, and then meeting that group that I did the other day, they offered so many tips, but typically, like, I've just been solo in learning, so, you know, in trial and error, you make those mistakes, and you get to try again, and that's, you know, you just keep doing that until you perfect the technique. Also, I should have started off the video with this, but my sweater, I did not make this. I wish I made this sweater. It's beyond my skill set for now. I got it secondhand and I really enjoyed the colors and the color blocking. I would love to try making something like this one day, but for now I have no expertise making something of this scale or with these techniques. But hopefully I could find a pattern that's similar and try it out. I honestly think the pattern I'm knitting right now could apply with the color blocking. So maybe in the second one I do, I'll try stripes or something else. And I'd love to make a cardigan. As I'm doing this, I just keep thinking of just keep swimming, just keep swimming. But instead, just keep knitting, just keep knitting. Alright, so this is like a very random pop cultural thing, so I apologize if you haven't been watching, but as I mentioned, I was doing this while watching Bridgerton, and I'd love to know, is anyone else watching? Or have you watched the series? What do you think about the series? I have not personally read the books, so I can't speak to any of the references if they're accurate or not, but I have watched the show, and I will say that I love the characters, except, well, I love the characters. I just feel like I wish, like, once their season was over, they didn't become background characters, and that they were still involved. Like, where is Daphne? And I know that her husband did not want to be in the show anymore, but, like, where's Daphne? She didn't say she didn't want to be in the show anymore. And I feel like now that we're on Benedict's storyline, so that gives you context to when this video was filmed. We're now on Benedict's storyline. I feel like it's almost like not as entertaining. Like, we don't really care that much about what he does. Like, we wanted to know more about, like, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on it? Season 2. That we wanted to know more about them and like what they're doing, and everyone loved their storyline. And then also I feel like people either loved or hated Penelope's season. I don't think a lot of people felt like she got justice with how her character was represented, but it almost seems like, again, like, I don't know how the books go, but it also seems like maybe her story should have been last, given has the biggest secret. And now you almost, like, for me, I wonder, like, what other conflict is going to happen now that the queen knows, her family knows, well, not her family, but, like, her husband, who she was hiding it from, and her best friend knows her secrets. So, like, what else is there? What other conflicts will exist? I feel like I'm just watching it now for the pretty gowns and the music. Also, shout out to a local, so I'm from Toronto, and there's a few songs on Bridgerton that were composed by this group from Toronto called Strings by Paris, and they did some of the covers, the violin covers that you hear on Bridgerton. So also shout out to them because the music is incredible. I think we all can agree on that. I love hearing live instruments, and I love when they are being creative with, like, usually I don't like it in this context because it kind of takes you out of the time period, but I think the way that Bridgerton has done it with the music, it has been very nice to watch. So, but yeah, like, I don't know I don't know if I agree with some of the decisions that the characters are making, or even just like who's being featured this season. But hopefully as the episodes go on, it gets more interesting. Right now I'm just like not interested in his storyline. Is that just me? Like, I feel like I don't really care that much for his story, but like we're only on the first half right now and they haven't released the rest, so maybe things will change once they do. But yeah, sorry, that was off topic, not related to knitting at all, just fun to talk about costumes and a random pop cultural TV show. If you don't really like that stuff, you could always just like mute me in the background and I'll still be here knitting with you. You can play music if you want. We're almost at the end of our 20 minutes. How far did you get? Congratulations for sticking with me. We have a minute left. almost there. I feel like time always flies. Like, you never realize, like, sometimes when I'm doing this, I feel like it's taking forever. And then, like, for example, last night I realized, oh, it's 3 a.m. I've been doing this for quite a few hours now. It's always like you get into the groove and it becomes therapeutic. 14 seconds. Okay. And that is time. Thank you so much for knitting with me. I hope you got through some of your projects, or at least more than you started with. I feel like I did a couple of rows. I'm not sure how many rows I did because I wasn't counting, but it's starting to look like an actual sweater now. Hopefully in the next one it can be like a full sweater. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me on this fun little body doubling session. And until next time, if you like these kind of videos, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. I talk about a lot of fashion, knitting, and craft things, just anything that is creatively inspired. That's the kind of content that I create, and I probably will do another one of these again just because it was kind of fun and I got through a lot. So please consider joining me on this journey. Thank you. My name is Hallie. Until next time, friends. Bye.